Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to Will Shawn Like It, a series of videos where I read a newer book, preferably published within the last year and a bit, year and a half, uh, and chosen and provided by you, my subscribers. And this time it is Don Winslow's City on Fire, published in 2021, so a bit older, but this was provided by um, Freeman, one of my subscribers. So again, thank you very much, Freeman. And there's um, lots of little blurbs on here, like it says superb, Stephen King, Lee Child, Ian Rankin, the British Daily Telegraph, Financial Times, The Times, Daily Mail, Independent, Evening Standard, New York Times all have blurbs saying how great it is. And I'll just give a brief summary of it. It's set from about 1986 to 89-ish, about 2 or 3 year period, late 80s. And it's basically to do with the mob, but on Rhode Island, principally in Providence, Rhode Island. And the main character throughout the story is Danny Ryan. He's part of the Irish section of the mob in the city, and there's Italians as well, and they've been more or less in harmony for decades. However, a relative, they're all sort of families, like related, obviously, or well, it should be obvious that the mob, it's family orientated. And one of the relatives of Danny grabs a woman, grabs her breast, and she happens to be the girlfriend of one of the Italians. So this starts actually a war between them. The peace is broken, and one side kills the other. And then there's retaliation, and it just goes on for a long time. And it's all the machinations of this and how they go about doing this, with some brutal things in with there's backstory of Danny, where he met his wife, or how they met and married, and then about he's got an estranged mother, and we get her backstory eventually. The Italian side tries to kill Danny and many others, and yeah, and sort of there's other things happening. There's the mobs from New York, Boston, and all this are getting involved, or at least making statements regarding the war between them. So yeah, it's an interesting book. It's written like it's very, very, very easy and quickly to read. There's not much to it. Like you can see, there's a lot of white on there, and it's the narrative voice is kind of interesting. It's not unique. I've come across this before, but it's not from Danny's perspective, but it's from somebody's perspective that is sort of like Danny, that is part of the mob in some ways, because there's a bit of irreverency to it, and even expletives throughout the narration. And it does, there is some thoughts, but there's sort of statements outside of the thoughts as well. The expletives don't really work for me a lot of times in narrative, but because the way the voice is, it kind of works, because it's as if the narrator is a mobster in many ways. So that was kind of interesting. But it's really, really pared down, extremely pared down. It's almost like a film script. The author has, many of his books, he's written over 20 some books, and I think at least one or two has been made into film, and several into ongoing, or have been in series. And he's this is a former investigator, anti-terrorist trainer, and trial consultant. Um, so he's sort of familiar with the kind of milieu and the world, the mobster world, I would assume. So it has sort of a ring of truth to it, and in many ways, like to me, I sort of compare it to, The Sopranos, Tony Soprano, but it is and it isn't similar things because, well, The Sopranos have some depth to it. This is very, very shallow. The characters are shallow. There's some interesting characters, some very interesting characters. Like there's Danny. We get mostly from his point of view a lot of times. So there's a little bit of depth there, but not too much. It's still very superficial because there isn't much in the way of dialogue. It's very short, and the thoughts are very, very short and shallow. Like there's his wife's sister. We find out is in therapy. We get a bit of a backstory for her. When she was 14, her uncle, I don't think it was actually a blood uncle, but rapes her, and that is the scene is briefly outlined. And then she shows up occasionally, and we know that she's in therapy, and she says that, oh, she's the crazy one, and this kind of thing. But there's nothing else, because there's little hints at this and that about her, and statements that she makes, and it's just there was so much that you could go into there, but again, because there's no depth to it, it lacked that, and Danny's mother, who she's now in her 50s and a multi-millionaire, possibly billionaire, been estranged because she originally left New England and went to Las Vegas. She was very tall. She became a dancer, but then she realized that all she's got for herself is her looks, her body, and some brains. So she figures that she can't, do anything to get money and to get a nest egg. So she marries this sort of mobster and nightclub owner type person in Las Vegas, and they all wondered why she did, because he's sort of, she figured he would be safe for her. But she never really she finally gets a sexual awakening, and that's where they sort of part ways. She parts ways eventually with her husband, but she meets Danny's father, and she is a single mother, but then leaves the child with Marty, Danny's father. And then she just goes back, and she says she's not a whore, a prostitute, but she sort of sleeps her way to the top and into millions, by taking gifts and things like that. She was an interesting character because she seems to, by the time we get the backstory of how she started, so that was kind of interesting. And then we got sort of the current woman in her 50s, and I thought she was quite interesting because she's sort of content with herself. She now has money. She's losing her looks, as she says, but she still has the power. And she's slept her way from the bottom to the top to, through millionaires, politicians, judges, you name it. And she's got power because she's got power over them. And she helps her son and daughter as well, or daughter-in-law as much as possible, but he doesn't like her at all. Danny does not like her and does not want her help, but he is forced to when he gets shot, and to pay the bills and to have a replacement hip and so forth. But anyway, we get a little bit about her. But again, it's just glimpses, and these were very interesting characters. The other characters, they're just sort of stock characters that are in mobsters. You get people that are just crazy. There's characters that are clearly, that they'll kill easily. Corrupt police and FBI. All these things are sort of the stock and trade of I feel, to the mobster sort of genre or storyline. And it turns out that this is the first of a trilogy as well. And at the end, we've got a little excerpt from the second one, next volume, City of Dreams. Oh, City of Dreams. So it was City on Fire. So the next one's going to be called City of Dreams. But as I say, it's trashy. It's trash. It's like pure pulp. Like, he tries to see. This is the thing. He tries to write like the old pulpy sort of noir type 30s, 40s, and 50s sort of gangster or crime stuff, but he just doesn't quite pull it off. And some of the reasons is because he's trying to straddle doing that kind of style and with today's sensibilities to a certain extent, or 80s sensibilities, which doesn't really work. Like right at the beginning, I wasn't happy with the way it began, like the first couple paragraphs, because paragraphs are like a word long. And I'll just read a little bit here. It says, Danny Ryan watches the woman come out of the water like a vision emerging from his dreams of the sea. Except she's real and she's going to be trouble. Women that beautiful usually are. Danny knows that. What he doesn't know is just how much trouble she's really going to be. If he knew everything that was going to happen, he might have walked into the water and held her head under until she stopped moving. But he doesn't know that. See, that's he's trying to do that kind of thing, and it just doesn't work to me for modern writing, because I don't think they have the talent to really do that kind of thing. It's not bad, and like when I say trashy, I don't mean anything that it's bad that you should read it. But the one thing is, there's pretension with this. I see there's pretension in his writing. Not so much, and there is some pretension, but he, like, each section, he's got a quote from the Iliad, Homer's Iliad. And I was like, yeah, that's, you're trying to be pretentious here, Winslow. You're trying to be pretentious. And then the second one, it looks like, then he's got, quotes from the Aeneid. And it's like, But anyway, the question is, did Shawn like it? Yes, I did. I did enjoy it. I did enjoy it. It was a fun read. It was a very quick read. Very, like, easy, like, overly easy read. So there was no thought in it at all. Like, I mean, there's no depth to it at all. But it was enjoyable. Will I read more of him? Well, I wouldn't go out and search for his books, nor even the sequel or the two sequels, the trilogy, if they're even out by now. I wouldn't search for them. However, they would be something that if they came across my path, and I wanted something and to have, a few things of something to read, or if I'm somewhere, like staying somewhere, and there's a bunch of books I didn't have any, and I saw, and I'd recognize his name, and I go, okay, well, that'll give me a few hours of reading, and take me away for a little while, easy reading. And yes, I would do that. But as I say, I wouldn't search him out. But I to read this, saying superb. Well, I don't know. Lee Child, like, come on, this is just a joke. Intensely human in its tragic details, positively Shakespearean in its epic sweep. No, it's not. Immersive, violent, compassionate, Ian Rankin. Well, that's a little clearer, maybe. Daily Telegraph's Book of the Year. One of the great literary achievements of the century. No, it's not well written. It is very, very simply written. But that's fine. That is fine. I like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want something with depth, you're not going to get it. If you know, there's sexual things in here. There is swearing. There are, brutal murder in here as well. So, but yeah, it's got the whole 9 yards, and it's like, well, it's to do with the mob, so there's going to be violence and death and sex. It's just part and parcel of it. But yeah, so anyway, again though, thank you very much, Freeman, for getting me this. It was, like I say, it was a fun read, but I would never have picked this up to read by myself. So that's what's great about this, because I am getting to see some things. And as I say, I'll like I say, if I do see his stuff somewhere, and it's sort of, without, any cost or hardly any cost to it, I will read more, and I will, possibly if I was able to get a hold of the next two, for the trilogy. And yeah, because I'd like to know where he would take it, where he would take it. I'm not going to give any spoilers of the ending or anything like that, but curious to know where he would take it. So again, and next time, I don't have it here. It was a book. My next book is, I can't remember the name of it, but it's a book that was selected by the AI program. So that'll be my next one for April. And because I'm leaving the Empire of the Vampire for May. But I might flip those. So I could do the Vampire one maybe in April. So anyway, so it'll be either the Empire of the Vampire or this other one it's another sort of thriller crime, I think, that was chosen. So I've never heard of it before, but we'll check it out. Again, thank you. I'll see you next time, BookTube.